Hello everyone, I have something a little bit different here for you today. Voices of the Void is a game that I've been playing entirely offline, but have been recording my gameplay just in case. And because I think the game is pretty cool and there's a bunch of stuff I want to show off, what I have for you in this video is a narrated retelling of my first playthrough so far. So let's enter the horrific, comedic, and weirdly cozy world of Voices of the Void as we turn up for our first day on the job, running and maintaining a remote satellite array. I hope you like yapping, by the way, because this game is dense to explain, so there's going to be a lot of that. Alright, you've been warned. I hope you enjoy. Let's get to work. The game starts us off with luggage in hand, all the way at one side of the map, and we've just got to make our way to the home base ourselves. Now this whole thing is set at night, which does give it a little bit of a EP creepy kind of vibe, but my attitude going into this playthrough was very much, if the game doesn't give me a reason to be scared, I just won't be. So instead I used this time to check out the nearby satellite, as well as testing out if there was any fall damage. Yes, there is a lot of fall damage in this game. It's pretty brutal. After a very long walk dragging my shattered bones along the pavement, we finally made it to base, and it's an absolute pigsty. Not only that, but it looks like we're even going to be competing for the top bunk, because this place already has a lot of residents. There are tons of mannequins here. While we watch this footage of me exploring the base in the past, let me give you the guided tour right now. The first room we're looking at here is the garage, which contains our ATV. We're going to be using that a lot later to get around the map fast, and not to mention a bunch more mannequins in this room. Kinda goes without saying at this point. Taking the maintenance lift up to the first floor now, we enter this storage room, which I kind of never used. Although, it is very cute that they lent a mannequin against this door in an attempt to scare me. Nice try, but I'm too smart for that. Except I'm not too smart for that, it turns out, since that sound genuinely made me jump a mile. Continuing the upstairs part of the tour now, we have the combined kitchen and bedroom. This room lets us sleep to pass time because, yes, this game does have a day and night cycle. I think one full day lasts about a little bit over an hour of real time. The bedroom also has an adjoining bathroom, plus mannequin of course, as well as a balcony, which is nice, I guess. Heading down to the ground floor again now, we have two of my least used rooms in the base, the ground floor storage room, as well as this nearby break room. But now it's time for the main event. The main computer room is where we're going to be doing the vast majority of the work in the game. We're going to be spending a lot of time here. And needless to say, it's also an absolute sty. There's also this server room, which I will be going into a bit more detail with later as we talk about the game mechanics. But for right now, let's just leave that where it is and explore down in the basement. But first I learnt the difficult and inevitable lesson that in Voices of the Void, if you run into a door without opening it, that happens. This will become relevant later, unfortunately. Finally dragging my giant concussed head down into the basement successfully, we see that there's a big old breaker box fuse box thing down here. An equally large-sized furnace, which we'll be getting some use out of. And this incredibly suspicious door held shut with a chair that contains a bunch of meat. Also, more mannequins down here, but I guess I can stop mentioning that at this point. So that was the base explored, and now that I'd gotten my curiosity satisfied, there wasn't really anything left to do in the game but get to work. So I suppose I'm going to speed through the first couple of days now, and use that footage to explain how the job simulator part of the game actually plays out, and how the work works. let's get into it. I mentioned before that the game is all about running a satellite array, but I didn't say what you're meant to be doing. The name of the game is kind of a clue, but you're scanning the sky for any sorts of extraterrestrial signals, and that happens in 4 main steps. The second and fourth of these steps, however, take a very long time. The game really wants you to be doing other things while this happens. What are those other things? I gotta say, I love your enthusiasm and your curiosity, but you've gotta stop. I'll get to that. Once all 4 steps are completed, you can pop that signal on a drive, put that drive in a box, and when you've put enough of them in the box to be satisfied, you can put it on this drone pad and send it off to base for some sweet, sweet currency. That currency can be used to upgrade your workstation on the computer, or buy a whole bunch of goodies from the shop. Talking of the shop actually, and returning to the drone pad, all the things you buy from the shop will be dropped off here, as well as a daily supply drop just to give you a little bit of food and an extra drive. At this point you may think you kind of understand how the gameplay loop works, but this is only half the story. The other half is pretty much entirely summed up by the word maintenance. Yes, as Walter White famously said, breaking is bad. Remember that server room from earlier? Well, if you see one of them in here turn red, that means that that server has broken, which can have negative effects on your ability to do your job. But it isn't only things in your base that can break. If you check the console in the server room, you can see which satellites have broken down too. These are located all across the map, and they can be quite far away. You can either get to them on foot and enjoy a lovely scenic walk, or you can take your ATV. This part of the game is absolutely delightful. This alone is the reason I would call this game kind of a cozy game. I love hanging out here. Well, I love it when you're not doing a forward flip, concussing yourself, and then having to find your goddamn ATV because it's rolled away. Where did it go? Why's the sun changed? When you do finally make it to a satellite, however, the repair is basically the same as in the server room. If you thought we were out of the yapping woods yet, not quite. There is one more thing that can break in this game. That being the Transformers. These are another kind of remote building on the map, although thankfully only 3 of them this time, and they're responsible for powering your entire base. They start at 100% and slowly degrade over time. Press the button and you'll pump them right back up to 100%. Very easy to do, the entire challenge really is just getting to them. Now that's a pretty simple process, but you really do want to keep on top of this. Because if even a single transformer goes down, you will lose power to your entire base. You won't be able to download signals, process signals, you won't even be able to check the terminal to see which transformer went down. It's a pretty bad situation. There is at least one bone thrown to the player though when these things break, and that is that the power line going to the transformer that is broken will have an electric staticky effect on it. So at least you can always follow that to the right transformer and get it fixed. So that is how my first 2 or 3 days on the base played out. It was very much just a vanilla job simulator that I actually enjoyed quite a lot. It was very peaceful and fun, and there was even a beautiful meteor shower on night 2, I think. The vibes are fantastic. That is until night 3, when the power went out. Now, thankfully, because of all my yapping preamble to get to this point, you know the power situation as much as I do. If the power's gone out, then clearly a transformer has failed, so we should head outside and follow the sparking power cables. One slight problem though. None of the cables were sparking. At all. This was deeply confusing to me. I kind of had no idea what I should be doing in this situation, so I decided to sheepishly return to base. And it was at that moment that I remembered. There's a big old breaker box in the basement, right? So I headed down there post-haste, and sure enough, all the switches were turned off. Now, was this something that I should have been scared of? I was kind of leaning towards no on this one. I checked the radar in the main computer room to see if anything untoward was happening. Yes, by the way, there is a radar, that's another thing in this game. But the only thing out of the ordinary was a ping way off to the west, and so that really didn't seem like it was involved. So with the overwhelming emotion of mild confusion, I returned to bed and went to sleep. This brings us into the section of the video that covers the rest of the first week up until about day 7. If I had to give a subtitle to this section, which I do because otherwise the government will kill me, I'd probably go for Clueless. Let me elaborate on that. After this first scary event, I was feeling extremely comfortable and very much non-scared. That sense of security as I just bumbled around the base doing my job resulted in me missing a few things happening directly under my nose. For example, I decided to use all this extra stress-free time to start cleaning up the base. So as you watch this footage of me cleaning the windows and picking up a whole bunch of trash, I want you to think for a second about if anything is conspicuously missing from the base now. Yes, that's right. The mannequins. The base used to be absolutely rotten with the chaps, and now there's not a single one. You may have noticed this because you're very smart, but I sure as heck didn't. But don't worry, dear reader, I will remember at some point. Kind of hard not to, but that's all getting ahead of ourselves. For right now, I was just having the time of my life, doing my job. Sure, some signals were getting a little bit weird, but while Twitter is very scary, hashtags don't really give me that Halloween scary vibe. So now we reach day 5, and all is good in the world, I'm snoozing away. Except, the game wakes me up. I didn't click to exit sleep, I'm just suddenly not asleep anymore. Also, when I pause my game, the text is glitching, and I can't save anymore. This is a state known as meta-paranoia. Basically, the game is telling you, something is going on right now, we've removed your ability to sleep, we've removed your ability to save, you're gonna have to handle this. This sure did seem like something was happening, so cautiously I explored downstairs, but I really couldn't find anything unusual. I checked the console and the radio tower was disconnected, but other than that, everything seemed fine. After a short amount of time had passed, I paused the game, and now I could save, so I guess disaster averted. Now let's get some real talk here, because I'm not actually sure what happened here. As far as I'm aware, there is meant to be a story event that happens at this time on this day. However, the description that I read online about this event definitely did not happen in this footage. So maybe it's a bug, maybe I did trigger the event but then left the spot where it would have actually been visible or not, I don't know. But what I do know is that this only served to reinforce the way I was currently thinking. This game is just a cozy job simulator where nothing ever happens. I mean, listen to how peaceful this ambience is. Beautiful, beautiful bird song. Just beautiful bird song. Love that bird song. Definitely not going to be relevant later, but remember the beautiful bird song. And this is how things played out for the entirety of day 5 and part of day 6. I just continued my job uninterrupted, finding cool shacks I can't get into, despite my hammer's best effort, gracefully arriving at satellite dishes that need to be repaired, and also one time I got stuck on a chair. So that's fun, I guess. In fact, at this point in the game, I even started doing hash codes. Now, hash codes are an optional objective you can do every day for some extra coins. It basically just involves writing down this code and sticking it in a box when you send off the drives. It's pretty boring, so I won't be showing it in the rest of this video, but just know that I was making so much money at this point, my setup was absolutely going nuts. But then, everything changed on day 6. There's a strange signal. What is that shape? It's unnatural, Could it be that we've been visited? But did you see the lights flicker just then? So I headed to the terminal to check if any of the transformers needed repairing, and Jesus Christ! We gotta go. So forget aliens, I've got more important things on my mind. So I absolutely hauled butt towards the transformer in the middle of the night, repaired it, naturally, and headed back to base, processing that signal and forgetting all about it. Let's get back to cleaning. Yes, the Clueless streak continues. Big head empty energy, no time to get paranoid, no time to get anxious, just doing my job, repairing satellites, and having a little bit of a snooze. That wraps up the first week on the job for the world's least observant horror movie protagonist. At this point in the game, I'd been playing for a little bit over 10 hours, and as far as I was concerned, this wasn't a horror game. Nothing scary had happened, in my opinion, and I was starting to believe that my save game may have been bugged. So as we move into week 2, will I finally get some scares? Yes, at this point the game hit the Christmas event, and the entire thing just got a whole lot more jolly. I was absolutely enraptured looking out the window. Can you believe it? My favourite cozy game has a Christmas season. So as I ran outside to play in the snow like I was 5 years old, I was a little bit stun-locked by the fact there was a present on the doorstep. Now, an absolute truckload of satellites had just gone down, so I figured I would pop that on the desk and worry about that later, planned my route, and set off. And so began a wintry expedition as I went to a server, fixed it, went to a server, fixed it, went to a server, and you're not going to believe this, fixed it. This was all going according to plan, until I was driving down this valley and saw something unusual. Now that may have been a little bit hard to see in the snow, so let me play that again, slowed down. Now what in the world is that? I say, pretending I didn't immediately recognize what that was. Yeah, that was the paper aeroplane looking thing from that weird signal the other night. With it vanished, the only thing I could see at the scene was this weird hot egg, and since my character couldn't pick it up, I didn't really have a way to bring it back to base, so I guess I saw what I need to see, and I just left. It was starting to get dark at around this time, so I decided I should fix up the final satellites and get back to base by doing a sick flip. Before resuming work, I did have a delivery to collect, some more bin bags for my favourite thing, cleaning. And as I walked into the main computer room, I'll worry about that later. Let's all be honest with ourselves, as cool as that looked, I don't think the desk is the best place for a Christmas tree, so I popped it next to the radar. As we watch footage of me continuing my work through the night, it seems like I'm weirdly interested in the time. And that is very, very funny, because the time of day right now is actually critically important. Not that I knew that at the time. So I continued with my work, completely oblivious, and Krampus is here. Naturally, I tried to pause the game, and indeed, there was meta-paranoia. I couldn't save, and this also meant I wouldn't be able to sleep. This is especially bad news for me, because I'd been playing chicken with my stamina all day, and it was really, really low. So I guess whatever's going on, probably Krampus related if I had to guess, means we're going to find out what happens when we hit 0 stamina. So that's fun. So, killing the time by doing some more cleaning, and Jesus Christ! That isn't Krampus. That is actually a thing that can happen when you're running very low on stamina, and wouldn't you know, it sucked all the remaining stamina right out of my body. So now we get to watch the extremely distressing footage of me trying to claw my way back to the bedroom in the hope I'll actually be able to sleep, and collapsing on the floor as I attempt to do so. Even though the game was yelling at me that I couldn't sleep, I figured maybe if I collapsed while on the bed, that would kind of brute force sleep. Well, I guess that's sleep in some ways, although that sounded a little bit less peaceful than what I was hoping for. And there you go, our very first death in the game of natural causes. Reloading my save, we were back to 10:45 on that very same night. It is extremely funny in retrospect seeing me looking at a clock that says 11:45, running furiously to the bedroom, and instead of sleeping, eating food, and going back downstairs. Very much yelling out of a car window.png energy on this one. And would you look at that? Krampus is here. I still had no idea what that meant. But I was about to find out, because while sorting trash, I finally met the boy himself. And in a scene that is extremely embarrassing to show you, immediately ran into a door and knocked myself flat on my ass. This entire sequence is just Hollywood slasher movie levels of bad decisions. Deciding that the front door was out of the question, the only other way I could think to escape was to jump off the first floor balcony. Why did I think that was a good idea? Don't ask me. So with dripping blood, broken legs, and my health critically low, I didn't make it terribly far limping into the forest before getting stabbed and finished off. And just like that, we have our second death of the playthrough. Things really have started picking up, haven't they? So now that we've actually been killed by Krampus, let me explain how he works. At exactly midnight, Krampus will spawn. He will patrol in front of your base, walking backwards and forwards in a very menacing manner. And after a certain amount of time has passed, or maybe it's random, I'm not exactly sure, he will begin approaching you and just start stabbing you every couple of minutes. If you think you can lock yourself in a room, doesn't work. He can walk through doors. So maybe you'll come up with a plan like I did to just drive very far away and hope that he can't get you. Also doesn't work. Well then, what about if you get very, very high, like hiding up the radio tower? Well, that doesn't work either, because this boy does not obey the laws of physics. That is death 3, by the way, and what a ludicrous death it is. So, what are you supposed to do about Krampus? Well, the answer is, don't spawn him. All you need to do to defeat him is just not be awake at midnight. You can literally fall asleep at 11:59 and wake up at 0001, and that's fine. And if avoiding Krampus isn't good enough already, to sweeten the deal, the Christmas tree in your base will even spawn presents overnight. So once I'd figured out how Krampus worked, what were my thoughts on the horror now? It's kind of hard to explain this to you, but in my head, the logic was because Krampus is a Christmas event, if I wasn't playing this at Christmas, then nothing would have happened still. Therefore, nothing happened, I guess. Is that fair? Absolutely not. But did I feel that? Yes, and I continued my job, completely happy, feeling like I didn't have a care in the world. I mean, just listen to that beautiful bird song. Just listen to that beautiful bird song. Well, that's unusual. Yes, at this point in the game, the birds leave. They just leave. There is no more life in this forest apart from us. Or is there? Now that's very cool, but did I notice that? Obviously not. Come on, we can see the pattern here. And at 2 minutes past midnight, I was once again woken up by the game with no idea why. I couldn't see anything out the windows, but the radar shows that 5 objects appeared at the exact same time I woke up, and then disappeared 5 minutes later. That combined with the next signal being 2 of those weird paper aeroplanes, things were definitely getting strange. But before we worry about that, let's check out tonight's Christmas haul. So the first major item I got was the gravity gun. Yes, it is basically just the gravity gun from Half-Life. It can pick up big objects and throw them. Next up, I got this plush toy to add to my collection. And finally, I get radioactive waste? I had no idea what I was going to use that for, so I thought, hey, it can accessorize the hallway. A little bit of a splash of color, if you will. With all the excitement about presents behind me, I got on with my job, and then I heard a weird cough. You can see me checking over my shoulder like there's a coughing man behind me, some sort of sickly stalker following me through the woods. The game was definitely enabling me in this paranoia though, because the physics jank definitely didn't help. But back to the good news. Thanks to my nuclear-charged productivity, I'd saved up so much money and was finally able to buy two very cool things: the Kerfur and the Broomba. Before buying it, I had absolutely no idea what the Kerfur did, and after buying it, I still didn't know. That is apart from having the ability to jump scare me on demand. Oh, god damn it! But enough of the silliness, let me explain what they actually do, because it is quite relevant. If a server is broken, whether that's in your server room or in a satellite, you can activate the Kerfur and it will run off into the distance to fix that server. Once that server is fixed, the Kerfur will return to you like a lost puppy, no matter where you are on the map. Needless to say, this is extremely useful and can save you a bunch of time. The Broomba just cleans up trash. And there's that cough again. The mysterious stalker should really get that looked at. For the second night in a row, I was once again woken up by meta-paranoia, this time at 41 minutes past midnight. Things played out much the same as last time, although this time there were 6 new objects in the sky. However, as a little bit of dessert, the game also gave me one extra thing. Very loud banging from the server room. So, picking up my best excuse for a weapon, that being the gravity gun, I don't know what I was hoping to do, like grab a ghost and yeet it? I don't know. I bravely explored the server room and found there's nothing in there. It's fine. Looks like the danger has passed, and I'm going to live forever. Oh. Well, that's not good. So, that's Death 4, and I did have a little bit of a hunch about what caused it. Yes, radiation is a thing in this game, and that barrel I got as a Christmas present was giving off oodles of it. And because I put the radiation barrel in a much traversed concourse of the base, I was topping up my radiation points just constantly doing my job. Now that I knew my cause of death, I did the only responsible thing and yeeted it into a river to be somebody else's problem. So with a slow and painful death averted, it was back to the idyllic job simulator game that I had somehow convinced myself I was still playing. But you will be very glad to know that that delusion will not last long, and I really can't pretend any longer that I am living my dream cozy lifestyle. Here's a few highlights of the oddities that occurred in just 2 days. I received a bunch of emails back to back that were nothing but hashtags. While checking the security camera feeds, a mysterious camera appeared that disappeared immediately after looking at it. I ran right into a door again. Okay, look, that's not a weird thing, I just wanted to show it. It's always funny to me. I discovered a signal that was broadcasting a PNG of the inside of my office. And finally, the radio tower disconnected, and when I went out to fix it, it was just gone. My confusion was palpable. And if you thought that was an exciting day, when I got back to base, I heard a strange noise. What on earth is that? In fact, I was so excited by what I'd just seen, I hit the ragdoll button by mistake, and then in my eagerness to investigate, ran into a door again. Just 10 out of 10 role-playing on my part. This is a paper alien on a cart. This is something I like to call a prank-type scare, and these are some of my favourites in the game. They're so silly. If it was meant to scare me, it didn't really work, but what it did do was give me a brand new mascot for the base. This individual's name is going to be Kevin, and he's going to help guard the door. But let's be honest, his real job is to jump scare me every time I forget he's there. Oh, alien, Jesus Christ. Re-entering the base and feeling pretty smug about my haul, I quickly checked the radar to see what had happened when I was outside, and 25 pings? Good God. Needless to say, I kind of wish I could have seen what those 25 pings were, so I thought ahead. Welcome to my security camera setup. These are attached at the top of the radio tower for maximum coverage, with one looking exactly north and one looking exactly south. Now, unfortunately for me, while 3 of those pings from last night never actually disappeared, my cameras couldn't quite see them because they were perfectly to the west. Dang, a flaw in my perfect system. Trying not to let that thorn in my ego side distress me any more than it needed to, I did my job, summoned Satan, and then just before midnight headed to sleep to avoid getting Krampused. You'd think after so much chaos the game would finally give me a nice, long, peaceful night. Nope. We are now playing Voices of the Void for real, and the game has stopped holding back. God. Well, I guess the mannequins have started coming home. Welcome back, mannequin. You will be my second mascot of the door. I see. You know what? I have a perfect spot for this guy. So, tucking him in nice and snug in the furnace, I decided to set fire to him just a little bit and check out my handiwork. You know what? Let's just close that and forget we saw anything. So, finally able to get a good night's sleep at last, I woke up the next morning to discover that those 3 pings on the radar are still there. So because they seem to be pretty static, I decided, you know what, I'm gonna go see them in person. So I took to the ATV and went on an adventure. Arriving at what seemed like the correct location, I found a big old hole, a big dirt pile, and a couple of office rooms, one of which had a diary. So let's read that and get some deep lore. You know what? Change of plans. Let's barricade ourselves in instead. Is what I intended to do. But instead, immediately killed myself with a physics object. And that's Death 5. I really am the worst horror protagonist. Considering that entire thing a pretty successful expedition, I returned to base and there's another flipping mannequin. I wasn't initially sure if this was the same guy who had escaped the furnace, but upon getting down there, it would seem, no, this is a completely different gent. So it was decided that they would be best friends forever and could keep each other company. Oh, whoops. I'll get you another one, okay? I promise. As had become tradition at this point, I then headed to bed to avoid getting Krampused and woke up at 1 a.m. However, this was no ordinary wake up again. And the power to the entire building went out, although this time with a strange blue glow. And heading downstairs, I discovered the reason for this glow was that everything in my base was now floating. Now, was this scary? Absolutely. Was it scary for the reasons the game intended? Probably not. My main concern was that I'm gonna have to clean up so much mess after this. But regaining my senses, I headed outside the base to see if I could see anything causing this. And while I didn't, there was a number of explosions coming from inside the base, so I guess I got out just in time. The main culprit of all those explosions, I think, was this fire extinguisher. Now, as you can see, this fire extinguisher was extremely excited, so I decided to let it roam free in the great outdoors. Goodness gracious me. Now, the entire base was still powered down at this point, so I headed over to the transformer to fix it. With the power restored, the only thing left to do was survey the damage, and I do love the personalized horror that this game can deliver by undoing all my cleaning. You know how much I loved the cleaning. While I was desperately trying to undo the mess... Oh, I've got someone who would love to meet you. So, in he pops. It looks like I'm starting quite a collection. Now, as I have alluded to a couple of times, I'm absolutely cracked at this game, and I was earning so much money. But over the last couple of in-game days, I really had noticed that I was getting a lot less efficient. My downloads were going so slow, and it made it almost impossible to even meet the daily quota. So when trying to find out what exactly was going wrong, I discovered you're meant to calibrate the satellites. I'd been playing the game for literally 20 hours at this point, and I never knew you could calibrate the satellites. Some of them were at 20% efficiency. No wonder I was struggling. And this right here is the true beauty of a blind playthrough. You would not believe how fast my downloads were going after this. So, with the mess cleaned up and the satellites calibrated, it was back to doing just the normal job. So, I was out and about getting a hash code at one of the satellites, as you do, and then I heard something. Genuinely, this was the most freaked out I had been so far. So, even though it was broad daylight, I very carefully crept out the satellite and... Very funny. Well, I guess I've been pranked again. Now, I would have absolutely loved to keep these little guys as additional mascots for my base. However, they were just way too flippin' heavy, meaning that I could only take one of them. I'm sorry, I'll be back for you, I promise. Heading back to the base, I actually passed that shack I'd seen before, but now I had a new tool to get inside. So landing inside the shack, I was finally able to claim my prizes, that being a shovel and an axe. The combined shovel and axe were a bit too heavy though, meaning I now had to leave my second alien here as well. I'll be back for you too, buddy, I double promise. Little did I know that those extra weapons had come along at the perfect time, because things were about to get a lot more spicy. Yes, we're finally here at the finale of the video. And it all started off so small. Just one little weird thing. My Kerfur is trying to escape, but being stopped from doing so by the fact it's plugged in. An interesting thing to note though is that the Kerfur is turned off. It's not usable, it shouldn't be doing anything at all. I unplug it to see what would happen, and sure enough, it looks like it's trying to run away. So because I was pretty sure I wouldn't be able to plug him back in again, instead I picked him up and plopped him in the downstairs storage room. Thankfully, the physics objects here are stacked high enough that he can't possibly jump over them. So with my Kerfur out of order for now, I had no other options but to do his job instead. This meant heading across the map and fixing a satellite. No big deal, I've done it plenty of times. However, by the time I got back and opened the door, he'd gone. Yep, it would seem that he'd rubbed against the physics object so much that he'd ended up shattering it. So, my Kerfur has just gone. I have no idea where he is, apart from a suspiciously Kerfur-shaped dot on the radar, but there's also a grey dot next to it, so I don't really know what that means. Naturally, I decided to investigate, and while there was a satellite here, I really couldn't find the Kerfur anywhere. At least, that was until I saw this. Is that my boy? Is this my beautiful boy? Did my beautiful baby boy get called out to the woods like a siren was beckoning him, and then he was murdered? I really didn't know how to feel about this situation, but I was pretty certain that I had lost my Kerfur. So I headed back to base to mourn, but more importantly, earn enough money to buy a new one. That was until I heard another weird sound. When will it end? Can I just have a goddamn moment of shush in this base? Now, the game was once again in a meta-paranoia state, meaning that I couldn't save and couldn't sleep. This meant that the only logical thing to do was try and get whatever the heck was going on over with so the game would let me save again. So I checked outside the base. Nothing. I checked in the hallway. Nothing. I checked in the break room. Nothing. I checked in the storage room. Nothing. I checked in the garage. Sweet Jesus, do you people not know I'm mourning a dead son? Yes, it's yet another prank-type jump scare. But hey, unlike the cardboard cutouts, at least this time I do get a free mascot out of it. You shall be called Freddy, since I met you when my heart was broken. Freddy, meet Kevin. With that side quest over with, it was finally time to order my brand new Kerfur. Huh, why do I hear boss music? Also, it is very funny to see that as soon as I heard that music, I just quit the game. I guess I just wasn't feeling it. However, booting the game up again the next day, I decided, you know what? I was gonna see if my Kerfur was alive again. On the way there, I had the most underwhelming jump scare possible. Yeah, sometimes boxes just explode if you don't open them for a while, and I just got incredibly unlucky. As I made my way to the Kerfur's last known location, I spotted something in the distance. It's the buried Kerfur. And it seems to very much not like me. Thankfully, that angry Kerfur is incredibly easy to avoid, and I was able to find my original boy passed out in a bush. I know that feel, bro, but you're coming with me. Finding my way back to the base, it seemed like the buried Kerfur was feeling a little bit left out and wanted to join me, but I wasn't too keen on that. He did actually manage to get inside my base at one point, so I had to take matters into my own hands. Thankfully, he was incredibly easy to fight, because he can only attack in a straight line and attacks very slowly. So I just kept hitting it until it stopped moving. Turns out it can still keep moving, though. Yes, this isn't just a random roaming NPC, this is indeed the first boss. In fact, the Kerfur is now way more dangerous. It moves so much faster and attacks at like double speed. Because of this, for some reason, I decided I would hide up the radio tower. This was an absolutely terrible plan. He just camped out the bottom of the ladder and shot his spike upwards. Once again, horror movie protagonist logic at work. Eventually, I just had no choice but to fight it. I took an absolutely metric ton of damage in the process, but at the very least, I did get it to go down. And this time, I was taking no chances. I just kept hitting it. Not enough, though. And yes, yet another running into the door from me. I'm so sorry. The Kerfur is now incredibly fast and incredibly dangerous. This time I attempted locking it out, but accidentally locked it in the base with me. Thankfully though, I did manage to retreat to the garage and lock that door instead. This seemed to confuse the Kerfur, and it went back outside and tried to loop around the garage door. Now that seems like great news, except when I grabbed my weapons, healed up and went out to kill it, it was just gone. I searched all around the base, and I even searched on the roof, but even though I could still hear it, it wasn't there. And neither was I after a short while. So after dying of embarrassment, that's death 6. Unfortunately, because I'd gone far enough away from the base at one point, the game had autosaved. Meaning I was now stuck in this state where the base just wouldn't let me save, and I couldn't kill the Kerfur either. So I looked up what could have possibly happened and discovered there is a small out-of-bounds space underneath the base. Thankfully, this is incredibly easy to get to yourself, so I did a quick little search down there for our favourite troublemaker, and there it is! Thankfully, fighting the Kerfur in this scenario is borderline cheese. The vast majority of the time, it can't even attack you, and it obviously can't move. So I could just keep hitting it with the axe, get through all 3 phases, and there you go. Lots of free loot. So what did we have? Well, a radioactive capsule. That doesn't sound good. If I thought the radioactive barrel was bad, this capsule gives off so much goddamn radiation, I was dead in just a few seconds. Now, if I want to kill the Kerfur, obviously this cannot stay underneath the base. If the barrel killed me just doing my job, this will kill me before I can even do that. So I went down, killed the Kerfur again, and tried to remove it before dying. And that was just not possible. The radiation is just too strong. Now, let me outline real quick just how bad this situation is. Because the Kerfur is stuck under the base, meta-paranoia will cover the entire thing, and I will not be able to save or sleep. This is a problem, because we're in the Christmas event, and Krampus will kill me in just a few in-game hours. So what about if I go out of bounds, kill the Kerfur, and then go to sleep? Well, that would be leaving a heavily radioactive object out of bounds under the base where I can't reach it, and honestly, that would probably kill me even before Krampus could. And as it's been established, I can't remove the core either. That is all a pretty big problem, and since the game autosaves and I only had 1 slot, I've got only about 4 in-game hours to solve this conundrum, or about 12 real-world minutes. This exact scenario is what makes Voices of the Void such an interesting horror game. This absolute spaghetti of problems and solutions only exists in my game because of some very, very particular events. So here it is, the final boss of the video as I try and untangle that spaghetti before the clock strikes midnight and I get Krampused. So what's the plan? Well, it all revolves around one item from the shop, the hazmat suit. This would make me completely invulnerable to radiation damage, which would obviously solve a lot of problems. One big problem though, it costs 300 points and I have 81. Now, I do have a bunch of drives I can sell, however, selling things takes time, and ordering things also takes time, and time is something we don't have a lot of. Krampus is on his way. So, loading up my autosave, it was time to lock in. I can't be wasting a single second. First things first, after racing my way to the base as fast as possible, I immediately sold all the drives I had in my possession. Now it was going to take a while for the drone to arrive, leave, and then reward me with my points. So in an attempt to save time, after calling the drone, I headed straight out of bounds to kill the Kerfur. As soon as it died and the radioactive capsule dropped, I hauled butt back into bounds, and trying not to accumulate too much radiation, ran straight to my main computer and opened the shop. Getting rewarded my points for the drives just in time. Ordering the hazmat suit, all I could do now was wait. As you can see, it was 10 PM at this point, only 2 in-game hours until the K-Man appears. But there really wasn't anything to do but hang around. Even walking to the other side of this room would probably risk myself getting irradiated. So all I could do was sweat as I watched that time tick up until I heard the beautiful sound of the drone. Running through the hallway and trying not to swallow too much radiation in the process, I grabbed the radiation suit, put it on, and ran straight back out of bounds. Now, in the process of disposing the capsule, I did accidentally lose it in a bush, but there was no time to worry about that. That's good enough. We've got some Z's to catch. In the final stretch, sprinting to bed, I had no idea how much time I had left. Before interacting with the bed, I couldn't resist looking at the clock, and I somehow had a whole hour left. Thank God. And just like that, my save game has been saved from disaster. And now, it's back to work. God damn it! What now? You know what? That's a problem for another day. So that's the end of what I have currently played of Voices of the Void. And what do I think about the game? Well, I think it's clear enough for everyone to see that I've been having an absolute blast with it. But I also feel like I've barely scratched the surface. There feels like so much more to discover. What is the invisible thing that was banging on the door? What's the deal with the aliens and the ships? Why are the mannequins coming back? And why does that meat room I mentioned at the start of the game have less and less meat as time goes on? What's gonna happen when it runs out of meat, game? Needless to say, I will definitely be playing more of this, and if you would like to see those play sessions in another video like this one, do let me know, because this was a bit different to what I usually do. With all that said, thank you very much for watching, and when I changed my computer's date, why did this appear on the main menu? This is real! This is in the game! No, don't go to the end screen! What's that all about? What's going on, game? Answer me! What's this all about?